My timing's off by about 22 seconds this morning. Sorry about that. Good morning. Good morning. How's Gulf Boulevard today, Rachel?
It's going pretty good. It might be a little loud as I'm headed to the office now.
Nice. Good morning, Lindsay. So today is Master the Contract Friday, but I decided to get a little update because I don't want to say I'm concerned, but I'm alerted to the fact that insurance is going to get incredibly difficult. And Lindsay's been a strong insurance advisor to me for quite a while with Florida Best Quote. So I called her last night and said, hey, would you give us a little 15 or 20 minute rundown on where you see the insurance market going and what we need to do to make our customers prepared to take advantage of getting insurance. But for some reason, your camera went dark on me. There you are.
Thought you turned me off.
Nope. Very good. So you're in a hectic business right now.
Oh my goodness. Oh
You
my
gotta
goodness, it's very
deliver
hectic.
bad news to a lot of people.
Yes. Yeah, there's still carriers that are non-renewing business. I'm sure there's going to be some additional carriers to leave the state of Florida, but the OIR did approve 3 carriers for Florida. So we have 3 new carriers entering the state, and I'm sure there will be more to follow throughout the year.
OIR is the Office of Insurance Regulation.
Yes. So they make the decision to bring in these carriers. We have 3. Looks like 2 are going to start out as takeout companies with Citizens, and then the other is still on the back burner. So we're really not sure what their plans are.
Okay, let's back up a little bit because, I mean, it took me a while to figure some of this stuff out. So I'm sure not everybody's totally up to speed. Citizens, we just lost Rachel. Let me get my panelists up. Citizens is backed by the state or the federal government, the state of Florida.
Correct. State of
And
Florida.
they're considered the insurer of last resorts. Right? So that's not where you want to go to get your insurance. But if you need insurance, they're going to take you.
Yeah. Definitely not where you want to go, but with the prices, premiums of everybody else skyrocketing, Citizens is really a lot of agents' only choice because their premiums, they have made some adjustments to their premiums, so their premiums are starting to increase. But essentially they've always been lower than everybody else. And a lot of buyers are looking at the lower premium. DTI comes into play, it seems quite a bit, the premiums. So Citizens has been many agents' main choice.
Okay.
Insurers to go to. Now they're coming out with new rules. We used to be able to rewrite policies midterm. So we could write a policy maybe for closing because a roof is going to be done within 30 days. We can no longer do that. We can no longer rewrite Citizens midterm. So if we write a policy with company A, we can't cancel them 30, 45 days later and take it over to Citizens anymore. Citizens also is requiring flood insurance. Currently, for any home that is with Citizens that is in a specified flood zone has to carry flood insurance with matching limits. And by January 2024, they're going to require that all homes that are insured with Citizens that have 600,000 or more in coverage have flood insurance. And by 2025, 500,000. By 2026, 400,000. By 2027, they want to see every policy that they insure have a flood policy to match.
Wow. We can talk
So
about flood.
regardless of flood zone, by 2027, every flood policy or every policy that's with Citizens will have to have a matching
Right.
flood.
But flood policies for properties that are not in special flood hazard areas is pretty cheap, a couple $100 a year.
No, not anymore.
Really?
Not anymore, because they changed in 2020 how they rate flood insurance. So that preferred risk policy that we've always seen for those homes in X, C, and D zones that might have been $572 at max. Some areas you'll still see those low flood zones. Where I'm at, it would be $2,000 right now for me to carry flood insurance with those flood rates. And I'm in an X flood zone.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so 3 new insurers came to the Office of Insurance Regulation approved 3 new companies to write. Now, those considered, because I understand there's Dematec rating and there's AAA rating. So would these be Dematec rated companies or AAA companies?
I believe 2 are Dematec and one is going to be a Amtech or AAA rated.
Okay. Because I talked to other insurance people too, and they say the Dematec rating systems are really inferior companies. And if they ever get hit hard, they're not going to have enough money to pay claims.
Exactly. We've had a couple carriers move away from Dematec. Olympus and Frontline are now rated through the KRBA rating system. They don't use Dematec anymore.
Okay, because that's the big thing, right? When you place somebody with an insurer, you want to make sure they're solvent, and if there's a claim, they can pay it.
Exactly.
Right.
And we've always looked to Dematec in the past as if they're rated A, it's a solvent company, but we've seen how that has turned out.
And how's that turned out? They didn't have the money to pay the claims.
Exactly. United Property and Casualty, they were rated through Dematec. Federated National, they are rated A through Dematec. So a lot of those carriers that were rated A still went insolvent.
And then those insurers are screwed.
Yes.
Insured, the people with
Insured.
insurance. Like I'm with Progressive ASI, which is considered a very good company. And they have not let me go yet, but they doubled my premium. Right. So I'm pretty much telling everybody, confirm if I'm right or wrong, but almost everybody's insurance policy is being doubled upon renewal.
Also,
Yeah.
there's a couple carriers that have made very small increases, but that's been 1 or 2 carriers.
Mm-hmm.
But most everybody has made double, triple policy premium increases. So we're doing a lot of reshopping. Unfortunately, there's not a whole lot of choices that used to be because there's still carriers that are closed to writing in certain areas where the last hurricane Ian hit.
Right. So if I remember properly, when you quoted me, you gave me a quote sheet and you ran me like by 11 different companies. And like, I want to say 5 or 6 said declined to write in that area. At least one said too many claims. I had some roof claims a couple years back, and they refused to write me because I had claims in my policy. And then ASI kept me, and they were the lowest rate, but they were also, the other rates were higher than that. And that was a double. So you don't have that policy of mine because I've had it for 20 years. But what I did is I doubled my deductible and got my premium down a lot. So is that advice you're giving customers now?
We're definitely making changes like that. Moving around, coverage, seeing what content, if we can lower content, if we can play around with the deductibles, if there's additional coverages that we can change around, lower, whatever we can do if we can't replace it with another policy that's less.
Right. So that's on hazard insurance we're talking about. Just generally, if you have a mortgage, you have to insure your house with an insurance company or you're not going to get the mortgage. So everybody has insurance, and we need to warn people that insurance is, we need to shop it during our due diligence period, basically. Because if we can't cancel. If we find out a week before closing that insurance is too expensive, we can't necessarily cancel. Now, we could say during our financing period that we can't qualify because the PITI is too high. But it's really prudent for the buyer to shop insurance during their due diligence period so they can figure out where they're going. How long does it take you to quote a property, generally speaking?
Less than a day. I mean,
So
I'll usually have my quotes back within a couple hours or less.
So warning to everybody, when you go under contract, go get an insurance quote right away. So your buyer can figure it out, and you can tell the loan officer what they can expect that premium to be. Right. And feather in your cap or your company's cap, you have the ability, you have a lot of carriers. Right. For an insurance agency to get carriers, they have to generate business. Most carriers don't just give their lines to any insurance company. They want to see you proven in business for a long time doing lots of volume because they want volume from you. So if you don't have a lot of volume, you don't get a lot of carriers because you can't feed them enough business. So you guys have a lot of carriers, like you shopped 11 for me, and I got rejected by 6 and got raped by the other 5. Right, but at least I got good insurance, which is important, right? So hazard insurance, I wanted to cover that, and 3 new carriers coming in, they're going to be aggressive because they're going to want to build up their insurance base, because the more policies they have, the more solvent they are, right? And hopefully they pick areas, because most insurance companies will not go into, like, they're not going to go into Madeira Beach and say, we're going to go heavy on Madeira Beach. They're going to spread their risk. So once they get a little bit of Madeira Beach, they're going to get some in Reddington, they're going to get some in Indian Rocks, they're going to get some in Dunedin, they're going to get some in, they're going to spread it out. So, because chances are there's not going to be a total loss in any one area, right? Or in all areas.
So this goes back to also showing the importance of pre-loved certified homes,
Yes.
because then you can already have a quote so people will know what the insurance is going to be.
Yeah. Would you mind if a listing agent called you and said, hey, I'm going to put a marketing package together for my new listing. Could you quote this house for me? I think you're muted. No, you're not muted. You just went silent.
Yeah.
Yes. So listing agents, I'm telling you, insurance has become a big part of the affordability of your listing now, because now we've got 7+% interest rates. We've got insurance rates that are close to doubling from what the current owner has. And that's important communication to an owner, right? Because they need to know what the buyer's going to be paying for their house. And go ahead and estimate what the taxes are going to be on the new purchase price, because it's going to be double what the current owner's paying. There's some real challenges out there. Okay, let's jump over now to flood. Okay, so flood insurance is required in flood insured in flood zone A. Right, all the places got evacuated after a flood. And I'm going to tell you, I've told the agents this before, but I want you to validate it. I just got renewed with Progressive on flood insurance. Now, Progressive is not my flood insurance carrier. It's the NFIP, the National Flood Insurance Program. And Progressive is just the agent who's writing that policy for them. So most flood insurance policies right now are with the National Flood Insurance Program, which basically is bankrupt, right? They are paying out, it's the federal government. They're paying out claims to solve flood victims all over the country. And a lot of those flood victims don't pay for flood insurance. So they're using our premiums to pay for their flood problems. And they've done it too many. Louisiana is a great example, and so is Houston. Both those areas had major flood problems. And the federal government stepped in and bailed them out, but they bailed them out with our money. So now when we have a problem, our money has been used on other places. So that's why they're raising premiums. And in 2020, they changed their grading system from elevation certificate, how high you are, to how close you are to the water. So all of our waterfront homes in the beaches and Apollo Beach and Tampa, they're on the water. They're expensive. So the law says they're going to take you to what's known as the actuarial rate, which is going to be extremely expensive, but they're not going to take you there. They did this in 2012 with the Biggert-Water Flood Insurance Reform Act. And they just took everybody's subsidies away and took yours straight up, and everybody screamed bloody murder. So they repealed it and they started it over again. And they decided to just start raising it year after year. Well, they abandoned that. And in 2020, they did the Reform Act. And that's going to take everybody to actual rate. They took away the rating system. Now your proximity to water. And I know what my rate's going to be. And this is the first time I got my insurance bill. And, last year I paid $1,100 and I'm on the water. I mean, I can throw a rock and hit my canal. And it's $1,422. Pretty damn good, right? Because I've had this policy for a long time and it's only going up 18% a year, because it was $1,100 last year. It's $1,400 this year. It'll be $1,800 next year. It'll be $2,200 the year after that. But this is the first time I ever saw this. And what it does, it says, my building limit is $250,000, which is the flood limit. My deductible is $1,250, and my premium is $7,048. And then my contents, I have $100,000 worth of contents. That deductible is $2,000, and the premium is $2,890. So my total full risk premium is $8,504. That's what I should be paying, right? But then they gave me an annual increase cap discount of $7,360. which lowered me to the $1,400. So that's what's making me feel good. But my cap discount's going to be less next year and less the year after that and less the year after that, which means my premium's going up and up and up until I reach $8,000 a year. $8,000 a year divided by 12, that's what, 6 times 12 is 72. So that's almost $700 a month in flood insurance. That's a car payment. So my flood insurance would be $700 a month. My home insurance is going to be, geez, what is it, $900 a month. Now I'm $1,600. That's a mortgage payment on top of my mortgage payment. And that's where we're headed with this stuff. So tell us about, I got rated by Neptune also, which is a third-party company, which you helped me with. And their premium for my house was $650 because they're still rating on the elevation certificate, because the chance of my house flooding is like non-existent because I'm 18 feet above sea level in a 12-foot area. So the third-party carriers like that. But if you're below base flood elevation, the third-party carriers aren't even looking at you. So you're stuck with the NFIP, which means you're stuck with an $8,000 or $10,000 premium and with the 18% increase until it gets there. Now, the challenge is, and people need to know this, I'm tempted to walk away from NFIP. But if I do that, my buyer can't assume my policy. So they ever want NFIP again, they got to start from zero. Correct? Tell me if I'm saying any of this wrong, because I'm preaching that pretty hard. They're going to start at zero. So a new buyer, if I don't have NFIP, a new buyer is going to come in. They can come in and assume my policy. If I don't have one, they got to go straight to the actuarial rate. So if you have a customer who is in a low-lying house, they better keep their NFIP to keep their premium low for as long as they can until it reaches actuarial, which is probably like 14 years before it gets to the full amount. But if they don't keep it, their buyer's going to be, held hostage by the new premium, the original actuarial rate. So how are you handling this with customers? I mean, you're delivering bad news.
Bad news all around, absolutely. Well, when we quote flood, I mean, we're quoting flood on new business. We quote through everybody. We quote through our federal program. We have a rater that quotes through all of the private markets. So we're getting every option that we possibly can for flood insurance every time.
What's most likely the best scenario?
Private has come in less, maybe 30% of the time.
Okay.
Where I'm writing private instead of the NFIP.
Wow. So what does a hurricane do, like we just went through, that scraped the entire west coast of Florida? Do you think more carriers are going to leave?
It's possible. I mean, because at the end of last year, we were told there were still some carriers that could possibly leave. They're kind of bordering that line where they're in a little bit of trouble. So we could definitely see some more carriers leave Florida or stop writing in Florida altogether.
Right, because it's not just homes and flood. It's also if your home flooded and your car was in your garage or your driveway, your car flooded.
Auto carriers are increasing rates double, triple too.
Yep. Oh, well.
And they're removing the 12-month policy. Travelers will now only write a 6-month policy instead of 12-month policy. So 12-month policy, are going out the door as well for auto, which kind of sucks. You like to have that premium, have them only increase your premium once a year, not twice a year.
And pretty much everything's going up. Well, we got a state where the population is increasing 1,142 people a day. It's just crazy. But this is real life stuff, guys. So it's Master of the Contract Friday. I just wanted to let you know that I think best practice going forward is, get with your insurance agent. If you don't have one, Lindsay's great to use, and her company's very strong. I would, at time of listing, start getting quotes, educate the seller on what their poor buyer is going to have to be dealing with. That sellers lived there for 10 years. Their property tax assessed value has been capped at 3% a year. Their house has gone up 50% in value. Their taxes haven't. The new buyer comes in, it gets reassessed on January 1, and their $5,000 property tax is now 10. It's heartbreaking. And now the insurance that they've enjoyed for their time, boom, doubled again. It's going to be very much more expensive to live in Florida. And if they don't do the stuff up front and their loan officer doesn't take the time to do the research and find out what the new taxes will be and escrow for that and what the insurance will be and put that into the debt to income ratio, you're going to find people not being able to close. And that's not our job. So our job is to get them to close. Lindsay, why don't you put your information on the screen or type it in the chat or something?
And remember, hurricane season is not over yet.
No,
Ian
it's
came in September, so we still have a couple months left.
We do. And not to, I don't even want to say it out loud. I won't. Too often hurricanes follow the same track. Okay, so you're with Florida Best Quote. You're based out of Sarasota, but you write all over the state.
Yes. Yes, we write all over the state. We don't have as many markets down in Miami-Dade area. I mean, I don't think any people have many markets down there other than private, but we still can write all over the state.
Okay. If your homes were built on pillars 14 feet off the ground, would it still be the same premium? Yes, Matt. Under flood rate 2.0, it's not the elevation of your home anymore, it's your proximity to water. Is that correct, Lindsay?
It is correct. The elevation certificate we can use. Sometimes it does help premium.
It helped me a lot because my home under NFIP, I'm close to the water, so it's going to be that $8,500 premium. But my elevation certificate proves that I'm 18 feet above sea level and I'm only required to be 12. So the third party carrier said, shit, we'll take that bet. Yeah. And I got much lower premium. Yeah. So for NFIP, no, it doesn't make a difference. If you're going to a private carrier, it can make a difference. But once again, you don't have the safety of NFIP, which is backed by the state. So it's got money. Thank you, Uncle Joe. Electric cars flooded with salt water are exploding. Wow, I've never heard that. Okay, guys, so take a look in the chat. Oh, you only sent it to hosting panelists, Lindsay. You need to change it and send it to everyone. Just copy it. Well, I'll do it for you if you want. You got to go to everyone and then I'll just paste it.
I got it.
You're faster than me. Okay.
With me.
Okay. I don't want to take too much of your time. I just wanted to say, this is a serious thing and this storm is not good. It's going to have implications beyond what we know is normal. So Kathleen said, thank you for taking the time. All right, back to work. Go save some people some premiums.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Lindsay.
Have a great day. Have a good weekend.
Okay.
Bye.
Oh yeah. Happy Labor Day. Labor Day.
Labor Day weekend.
Cool beans. Okay, Rachel, what do you think about that?
I think that's if your home can be insured by a third party carrier, why would you be so worried about switching it to the NFIP so that they could assume a more expensive plan? Because if you're able to be approved by the third party carrier, wouldn't most buyers of your home be able to be approved by that third party carrier as well?
Yes, they would if that third party stays in the market.
Gotcha.
Right, because they seem to tend to come and go. No.
Right.
And I've got the security and the safety net of NFIP right now while it's still relatively inexpensive. But still, to save $1,000 a year, it's by the time next year, I would most likely switch.
Yeah, I think people will have to. So, yeah, and one of the things that I hate about being with Citizens, my home is one of the older homes here. All my systems are practically new, but we've had so many, and I do live like half a mile from the beach, but I'm on the mainland. So just far enough to be in the flood zone X. I don't like that Citizens is going to make me subsidize flood zones for other people. It's not fair. So, but unfortunately at the moment, Citizens is the only one writing policies in my area. So I'm kind of stuck with them.
Yeah, and I told you the Citizens is broke, where NFIP is broke, and so Citizens and NFIP, they're national flood, and they say, hey, look, if you want our hell, you gotta help us out. And the only thing to do is collect more premiums, and people aren't voluntarily adding premiums to their policy, so. There's our
And
first.
same problem our government always has. They couldn't balance a spreadsheet if their life depended on it. You know, as long as we can go get money from, as long as they can come pick everybody else's pockets, they're never going to be fiscally responsible.
Yeah.
So,
All right, the key takeaways I wanted to just walk away with is this is serious.
yes,
It's drastically affect affordability for buyers. And we need to educate sellers to be a little more empathetic when they're looking at a new buyer, when they find out, holy shit, my new buyer's gonna pay twice as much in tax, 3 times as much in property taxes that I'm paying. And they're gonna pay double flood insurance than what I'm paying. It's gonna affect value because premiums or values buyers purchase on payments. PITI. And the
So-
T and the I are going up. And the
Right.
P and the I are going up. We're getting hit on the fronts.
and to that point, one of the things that I do, whether I represent the buyer or the seller, you can pull estimate the taxes on the new price. And if you have that available, a lot of times the loan officer is still going to use what they pull from the public records, but at least your buyers are aware and you've let the loan officer know, because nothing sucks worse than getting to closing and finding out you can't close because your property escrow is not going to be enough and they're not going to fall within your debt to income ratio.
It's worse than that, because if you do close, then you get hit with the increase next year. They're going to collect the deficit from the prior year, and they're going to double collect for the next year. So your payment's going to get a whopping hit that might make you not affordable.
Right.
And that's really scary, because once you fall behind on your mortgage, you're in deep doo-doo.
Right. And it's super important if you've got people that are coming with an FHA loan or first time home buyers, that market gets hardest hit by the affordability. So it's important that they are aware of what it's really going to be going in.
Yep. It's our job as a good agent to make sure that happens. Now, I'll say again, the empathy for the seller to have for their new buyer. Just so you know, your buyer is going to be paying. My house, I'm paying $8,900 a year in property tax. If I went to the property appraiser's website, the new buyer would be paying $22,000 a year.
Wow.
That's just, I've been grandfathered in for so long. My rate just can't keep up, and the house has gone up in value a lot. So it's a big spread. If you're budgeting for $8,000 a year and you find out you got a $22,000 a year payment, that's $14,000 extra. That's over $1,000 a month. That's a pretty big hit. So anyway, let's talk about some contract stuff that's real life happening out there. And before we do that, you know, Joy, she had 17 closings come in on Tuesday. We had 16 come in on Wednesday. We had 77 left to go. So 16 and 17 is 33 off of 66. So we have 33 more closings that may or may not come in. Now, you guys all know that we have to close our books on the second business day. So let's count days. Today's the 1st. Is Saturday business day? Nope. Sunday business day? Nope. Monday a business day? Yep. But it's Labor Day. Nope. Not a business day. So we have the 1st, the 2nd, the 4th. So the 5th, we have the second business day of September is the 5th. So we want all of our business in the books and closed out by the 5th, so we can write the checks to Century 21, pay them their fees, and get it counted in the month that it closed. So anything that closed yesterday, please get it into us ASAP. Check with the title company, make sure they're overnighting it, pick it up, whatever we got to do, because we like to close our books out. And it was going to be a really good month, so I hope we had those extra 33 closings. We had some issues you and I talked about last night.
Yes.
I'm going to start at the top. You're going to take the show here. Chris and Sarah had a deal with the escrow holdback.
Yes.
Give us a scenario around that and how we solved the problem.
So actually they called yesterday, and this is it's a small apartment in a 55+ community over here at 5 Towns. And after the storm came through, there was an issue with the AC, and there had not been an issue with the AC. The system's about 5 years old. So they still wanted to proceed yesterday, everyone did, and they were trying to figure out how they could work, because the seller was willing to do $500 or whatever the cost might be, and the buyer was okay with that, so that everybody was willing to proceed, and they were acting as transaction brokers because they represented the buyer and the seller in this one. So they just were basically trying to broker a deal that all parties would agree to. And so the question was, how do we write that if they wanted to go ahead and close and have this extend past closing? Well, if you have escrow holdbacks, the title company will charge a $250 fee. That doesn't seem worth it on a $500 escrow. So we were trying to figure out how to write it so that the seller would still pay up to that, to resolve any problems, and then the buyer would assume responsibility for the rest. And my first thought was maybe we need to write a addendum that would survive closing. And, but that's kind of outside my wheelhouse. So I said, why don't you call Kat and verify that with her? And then they ended up talking with Danny at Title. So what happened is that they just went ahead and signed and waited to release until the problem was was fixed. And it turned out to be a blown fuse. So it was a real quick, and it's already been done this morning.
Yeah, that gets very tempting for a real estate person to solve a problem with capacity that they don't have, right? We can't write escrow holdback addendums. That's considered practicing law. Right? And coming up with language that to survive closing, once again, we're practicing law. So the reason the title company charges $250 is because they're paying a lawyer to do it. The title company can't do it either. So it does suck. It's a lot of money. And sometimes you have to trust each other, and that's dangerous too. But that's the reason why. Now, I thought about this too. Now you can't do it like, oh shit, there's a problem, let me throw a home warranty on it right now. Right? Because that was just, the warranty company's not going to do it. You got to submit the warranty application at the time of contract, because they know people will sometimes go, it's like, a storm's coming, so you go buy flood insurance and then you cancel it. And then the storm comes, you buy flood insurance. That's why they don't issue insurance during when the storm is a couple hundred miles away. But had we had a home warranty, even the gold plan, the basic plan, with the home inspection addendum, there's no question that AC would be covered under the cost of the warranty because it worked at the time of the inspection. So I'm going to start talking a lot more about home warranties, because things are getting older and are breaking. And the policy says if you have the home inspection addendum, which is $170 on top of the gold plan, or you pay $770, I think it is, for the platinum plan, that's included. But that's a really good way to hedge your bet. And I know, you buy a house and then the water heater goes, and you buy a house and then the refrigerator goes, and you buy a house and then this goes. I would have had 3 claims paid off my $700 premium if I had done that. And I spent a lot more than $700 fixing those problems. And we've all gotten out of the habit of even talking about home warranties because they're not competitive in the marketplace. But as our houses are on the market longer and we're seeing, buyers negotiating, not a bad idea to make you stand out from the crowd as a seller offering a home warranty to substantiate your extra price. But not a bad idea for a buyer to request it, because it's not necessarily a slap in the face to the seller anymore. So that was one example where a warranty might have helped on that one. But good job solving the problem. And that's what happens, right? FSBOs and people that don't have experience. How many people did you involve in that solution? You talked to Kathleen as a lawyer. You talked to Danny as a lawyer. You had 2 of our own agents involved. I'm sure they talked to other agents to get advice too. It really does take a village to get these things done. Pretty cool.
Especially when you have something so odd like that. But that's good to know that we can, so everybody take note. We do not write anything that survives the close, because we are not lawyers.
Correct. Yeah, if you're not sure what to do, you can check with the lawyer for free. Then you can engage them, then you gotta pay them, but they'll tell you for free. And we were transaction brokers there, and that was about buy home warranty, sorry. I wrote down 82nd Avenue, fight the fight or get it done.
So we had a situation there with one of our agents that, and I think the key takeaway from this is that if you go back and you take a second contract for someone, you should just make their escrow non-refundable if they want that contract accepted. That could have avoided a lot of problems here. We had, we represented the seller. And a buyer came and first made an offer 100,000 below what was the asking price. And they were like, absolutely not. We didn't even take it. Then they came up close to asking price. The seller did decide to take it. And then they went out of contract again. So then they come back and they send this really nice letter about how much they wanted, and their kid goes to the local elementary school there, and they're so excited and they really want this home and all the things that they love about it. And so the seller decided to accept it with a 0-day inspection period. And then they still had a laundry list of things they wanted fixed. The seller did go ahead and do those. 5 days before closing, they don't even go through their agent. They send a letter from a lawyer to cancel. And it went to title, it went to our agent, and it did not go to anyone else, which Kathleen can probably tell you, lawyers are supposed to deal with brokers, not agents. So there's the first red flag. But the long and short of it is that our agent was convinced these people really did want the house, because when she would talk to their agent, he's like, yeah, they really, really want it. And he was their stepson. And he lived in Jacksonville, didn't know this area. And I think the big issue, and it was an as-is contract, Lauren, yes. And they did request repairs. Our seller really wanted to close because her closing there, she had another contract contingent on this closing. So a lot of emotion involved, a lot of stress involved. And of course, she was very angry when she ended up giving them back this escrow. And it really was a crappy situation. And no, Kat, they actually did not have finance issues, although that's how they tried to get out of it. The loan officer, I guess, was not that experienced, and she had been communicating with our agent more than the buyer's agent, because the buyer's agent is impossible to communicate with. So Lauren was calling to check on the progress, and she's like, oh yeah, they're all clear. And she said, they just need insurance. And so Lauren said, well, I have the quote. She had already talked with Florida Best Quote, and she sent them over the quote and the fact that it could be bound. So I think the issue, this is assumption on our part, but from everything else that it was, the fact that they kept wanting to go low, I don't think they thought that the house would appraise for what it appraised for. And it had no problem appraising. We don't know the complete value, but we know it appraised at least for what they had. So I think that's why they wanted to back out, because they thought they were going to get a better deal than what they did. And
what was their reason for backing out? They were inside their loan approval period still?
They were.
Okay.
So,
all right. So we had a flaky buyer who canceled once. Flaky buyer comes back, and they've already proven that they're flaky. Mm-hmm. So how do we shore up a contract to make a flaky buyer not be flaky again? Increase the escrow, make it non-refundable. And remember, non-refundable deposit still has to be signed off by all parties. So if the buyer doesn't sign off, the seller doesn't get it. So you write a non-refundable deposit with instructing the escrow agent to release the money to the seller. So they're not getting it back. It's gone. Seller can go buy a jet ski with it. And it's gonna hurt, right? And then you can also expedite closing date. You could take away financing contingencies. There's all kinds of things we can do to do it. But once bitten, twice shy, right?
Right.
When you're dealing with a flake, and we probably could have done things to call them out and hold their feet to the fire. If they had put money at risk, they probably would have closed, because they probably did want the house. Mm-hmm. And now they're gonna have another problem, because they're gonna try to find another house. And they're just gonna get nervous. And having an agent from Jacksonville representing them who's non-communicative is not an ideal situation.
Voicemail box set up. It just, as you have reached this number, and it was full.
Mm-hmm. Lauren said, was there an addendum signed by the buyers waiving inspections?
An addendum, just a 0-day inspection.
Yeah, that basically does it.
Mm-hmm. But she really wanted to go forward, and except for the roof, which still had enough life left, it was minor things, and so the seller went ahead and fixed them. Well, so she goes back to market. And I need to follow up with our agent today to see what's going on with that one. But
Well, that's another example of why I teach. When you get a listing, put it on the market, get a home inspection before you put it on the market, fix all the little things, make the buyer feel comfortable and confident what they're buying. There's another side to that story. Maybe the buyer felt uncomfortable with that seller because they looked at the house was on for sale and all these little things are wrong. Well, those little
The things they asked for, one was there was something minor that they wanted looked at in the electrical system, which they called the electrician came out and said, yes, this is not a problem. And the other one was they wanted a toilet handle changed and they wanted a licensed plumber to do it.
Oh, brother.
So yeah, they were just really, really pretty flaky. And I think in that case, yeah, I think if we ever take a second contract, be sure that you make it hurt if they want to back out. So,
Yeah.
The other thing was that their lawyer sent this to Megan at Title at Paramount, pretty much demanding that she release escrow in line with the contract and, basically a bully bear letter. So the seller did not want to do it, didn't want to, like Craig said, we usually just take the high road, we write the addendum. So we ended up contacting the lawyer and letting him know he needed to use that we needed it from the agent with the FAR/BAR form. So all parties could sign so that the escrow could be released. And again, this lawyer didn't, it was me. I sent him that letter. He didn't respond to me. He called the agent again. So yeah, I agree, Kathleen. So anyway, after that, I called and I didn't get him. I left a voice message, but I said, if you would like, I could have one of our own staff attorneys call and explain it to you why we need the FAR/BAR form. So if your clients would like their money back, please send the correct form. And it wasn't 10 minutes later that the agent actually sent the correct form.
Yeah.
So
see, was, to me, it's a negotiation stance. A lot of times people threaten to do things because they want to make you shake in your boots and cave in and give them some concessions so they continue to move on. Because this is a burden on the seller, let's face it. They're packed, they're moved, the utilities are transferred, they're ready to go.
yes,
Just a pain in the ass, right? So they play these antics. I like to call it out. Okay, fine. I'll give you the release and deposit and cancellation. Put your money where your mouth is, sign it. And then they go, oh shit, this is serious. They're going to cancel us and we really want this house. Well, and they step back in line and go ahead and close. But so that's why I wrote down fight the fight or get it done. We can fight with the guy and say, well, buyer's agent, it's your job to prepare the form. So and we already know we got a non-communicative buyer's agent. He's a flake and not going to do anything. So in that case, I would just say, here's the form, sign it, call their bluff and see if they go for it. Because if a deal's going to die, I want it to die fast.
right.
Because I want it back on the market right away. Now I want to keep it going on this. But there's two different ways. That's just a different stance. All right. Another thing happened.
It's a bit of schadenfreude on my end, but I'm really kind of glad that they had to pay their lawyer for all those calls because they didn't have the know-how to hire a local agent, and they do live locally. So, well,
they're doing their nephew a family member a favor in Jacksonville, and it didn't help them out very much. Next time, get them a referral fee. Next item. Title after death.
Yeah. So, and this one, we had a very interesting situation. One of the things that Kathy and Megan and Victoria have taught us to do is to be sure before, and our company as well. That's why you have to have that tax record. So the first thing I do is pull the tax record to be able to see who actually owns it. We want to make sure that the people who are saying that they're going to sell it are actually the ones who are able to sell it. Well, this one had two owners on there. One had passed away. But we found out she had passed away in 2009. And I'm like, that's really strange. This had to have already been settled and gone through probate. And we sent everything over. Amar went ahead and had the listing go live. And then we found out that even though this woman died, what is that, 14 years ago now? Her estate has never gone through probate. I don't even know how that happens. So, So that has been an issue because now we had a contract that was ready to go with no declaration that it had to go through probate. So we've just had a little fight going back and forth to get the extensions that are needed, but he has that all squared away now. But it's a battle that we wouldn't have had to fight if we had had title start the search first.
Yeah, this is all the stuff we teach, and those of you that are watching are learning. And but there's hundreds of you that are not watching and not learning, and that's where these problems come from, right? So always, when you're in doubt of title, run it through Paramount. Even if you're not using Paramount, they'll help you out, and they'll run an O&E report. Megan was talking about that yesterday or Tuesday. O&E is an ownership and encumbrance report. It's basically a title insurance policy without the title insurance. It tells you the history of the property. And now, apparently, you can do that on the Title Toolbox app. You can pull your own O&E reports. That's one way to look at it. And you said looking at tax records, Rachel, and that's a fair statement. But
Well, it's at IMAP because on IMAP, if you pull that up, that's one of our systems in the MLS. I know a lot of people use Realist all the time. I like IMAP because it will link me straight to the deed.
that's what I was going to say. Kathleen says always pull the deed. But what's the deed going to tell you? Whose name the property went under?
Mhm.
It's going to be Mr. and Mrs. Jones, or
Yeah.
whatever their capacity was. But it's not going to tell you that she died in 2009.
No, and this one was, the property was actually held in a trust and the daughter was a trustee. So I am not, that was all clear.
Mhm.
So, and it just didn't dawn, because this was a newer agent who was expecting my help. And I feel like I'm the one who let him down because when we see that, I'm like, well, no, it's a trust. She's the trustee. You should be fine. But
Well, here's words of caution.
yeah,
A trust to transfer real estate title in Florida has to have specific words in it. It has to have specifically relate to and convey real estate. But a lot of people lived in New York or someplace where their deeds don't have to say that. So they have their New York attorney prepare the trust and they put the Florida house in it, but the trust doesn't have the words to legally convey title in Florida. So no matter what trust you get, I want a copy of the trust, give them to the title company. The title company's going to give it to the underwriter. The underwriter is going to review it for the proper language and say, yes, this is good, or no, this is bad. And then we can get it corrected. But we want to do this as soon as before it gets on the market, or as soon thereafter, but not the day or two before closing when we find out there's a problem. Right? So always, just as a rule, when you find out there's a death, ask more questions about ownership. If you find out there's a trust or death, go to the title company, let them do their thing to tell you, yeah, you're safe, you're good to go, it's all been done properly, because it's more complicated. I'm starting to put stuff in trust now too, because I've never done any of that. I have no idea what to do. My attorney's not.
and big shout out to Megan too, because this property went live, I think on a Friday. It was under contract on that Saturday. And it was before the next Friday that we already found out that there was this issue. So they took care of it quickly. I think we knew, I think it might've been that Wednesday that we knew. And so all parties were aware.
Because when you find out it has to go through probate, what you're talking maybe a 6-month delay.
Actually, their lawyer says 60 days.
Okay.
So,
Well, you think after 14 years, whoever was entitled to a claim on that estate would have spoken up.
I mean, I just didn't even realize you could go that far because,
Mhm.
you have to file death records somewhere, but apparently not, or apparently this piece of it got overlooked.
Okay, I wrote 82nd Avenue down twice. There's a stepson who was the agent, didn't have voicemail. We talked about that one. The last thing I wrote down is foreign countries of concern. Is that your issue? Is that mine?
That was yours.
That was mine. Yeah, so July 1st, a law was passed that said people who are from foreign countries of concern, there's 7 of them, I can't name them all, are not allowed to own real estate near secure facilities like a military base or a utility station or places like that where terrorists could do things and mess up an area. So they put a clause in the contract that says, hey, if you're a person of foreign concern If you're a resident citizen of a country of foreign concern, you need to check with your lawyer. Pretty much, that's it. And they put a box in the contract. And we were instructed to point to the box and say, please read this. And if you have any questions, talk to your attorney. Right? That's the disclosure that we have to make. And the law became in effect on Saturday, July 1st. And the contracts were changed Saturday, July 1st. Well, we had a situation where an agent was writing an offer, and they pulled a contract that was not from .loop, because if it was in .loop currently, it would have had the language in it, but it didn't. Our staff found it and called the agent and said, hey, we need the addendum, because there's an addendum to add to it. Let's say you got it offered on FAR 6, not 6X. FAR 6X is the one that has the language in it. So FAR 6 was the previous. So an agent submitted an offer on FAR 6. It doesn't have that clause, and it was written on July 7th. So it's required to have that clause.
Right.
So we're asking for that clause, and the clause has to be signed by buyer and seller. Right. So Sammy's flagging the file, as she should, because it's supposed to have the clause, and the agent was very responsive. But Sammy was policing for both files, and we didn't represent the seller. The seller's agent never complied, never got the form signed. And we were holding on to the file because we were waiting for the sellers to sign too. So I cleared that up. We only have to have our party sign. I don't care what the other party does. That's their problem. Right? The disclosure is for all realtors to do this. But just going back over the countries of foreign concern has to be disclosed by us. And we do not ask questions about any of that because we don't want to be considered discriminated. You know, you see somebody of Middle Eastern descent and you don't know if they're from Iran. You don't know where they're from. So we're not supposed to do anything, but please read this. If you have any questions, talk to an attorney that's familiar with these terms. Right? That's our job. We have to make that disclosure. And that's how FAR told us to do it. And then Title did a little class with us on the countries of foreign concern as well. And they actually have to have affidavits signed where the customer says, I am not a citizen of a country of foreign concern. And they get those signed at closing. So it's going to be covered, but it's still our job as a realtor right now to have that form acknowledged, put them on notice, because what you don't want to find out is at closing, they're from a country of foreign concern, and the property's in South Tampa, which is within 10 miles of McDale Air Force Base, and you can't live there. And it really is a form of discrimination, and we can't be a party to that. So it puts us as realtors, we can't discriminate, and we can't violate fair housing. But this is a state law. Not all states have it, but it's a law for us. So a lot of us haven't heard about this. Read it. It's in the contract. It's right over the signature line. They actually put a big bold black line around the box talking about countries of foreign concern, people, residents, citizens of countries of foreign concern. So that came up. We figured it out. It's all done. It's taken care of. But that's what happens when we have all these closings at the end of the month. We get lots of issues that happen right before closing. And my goal is to have the issues resolved before closing, so people walk away happy.
So Michael has an example too. He says he has one where the owner, the dad, did a quitclaim deed to his daughter, and it's listed as a homestead with his daughter living there, and his daughter got married and moved to France, and now her dad wants to sell. I would say he probably can't, since he doesn't own the property. She would have to give it back to him.
Correct. And that's easy to do. They'd have to, maybe not so easy. They'd have to probably go to the American Embassy in France to get a U.S. notary to sign the quitclaim deed, to authorize the quitclaim deed. But you can quitclaim back and forth between parties. So if she was nice and wanted to give it back to her dad, she just quitclaim it back, then he could sell it. But that should happen before we list it. God, people do nutty things, don't they?
I do. I like country music. There's that song, God is great, beer is good, and people are crazy. And we sure are.
Dirk Bentley. Dad did a quitclaim deed to his daughter. It's listed as a PA, as homestead. His daughter living there. Daughter gets married and moves to France. Now her dad wants to sell. Yep. That's why we have lawyers. Starving lawyers.
A good one, and not the gentleman who was representing the buyers in our earlier example.
Yeah. Boy, Kathleen, you're tough on lawyers this morning. Welcome back, by the way. And if you all, just for fun, let's all send Chris Reed a text today and say happy birthday to Chris.
Oh, yes.
Blow up his phone. See online. Nope, he took his birthday off. Yeah, let's blow up his phone with happy birthday wishes. Okay, it's 9:25. That's all I had on my list for today. Any questions? You get an answer for anybody? Things coming up? What happens after a hurricane with real estate markets? Who knows? Life goes
Well,
around.
had investors contacting me already to see if anybody whose house flooded in Madeira or along the beaches, if I knew anybody that wanted to sell.
Here you go. Yeah, I got a couple of texts on that yesterday. And I found when I get those texts, I reply stop, and they get an automatic reply. So they're all robo-text, which is because they didn't have my express written consent. So I should just report them. Maybe I'll start doing that. I don't know. I'm not seeing any chats pop. Oh, here's another new chat. See, great stuff. Okay, good. Yeah, great stuff happens after a hurricane. The roads get cleaned up. The buildings get washed down. We're probably gonna have a little panic situation for a couple of days, and then it's right back to normal. It really is. We've been doing this for decades, so don't be afraid. Some sellers are going to freak out and say, I'm getting out of here. That's my house, which is what we need. We needed a big inventory influx event. This could be that. Some older couples now or families are saying, shit, I don't want to go through this anymore. We're going to move to Georgia. Well, Georgia got hit by the same freaking hurricane, right?
Yes, they did.
And then you get mudslides here, and you get tornadoes there, and you get all the wildfires here and there, and sinkholes here and there. There's always a natural disaster somewhere, but people start to do weird things. So be prepared and just be sympathetic. We don't judge, we just listen, and we offer ideas. So
Sure.
Go forth and talk to people. And the same rule as yesterday. Reach out, talk to people, and just say, how's it going? How do you feel? How's your house fare in the storm? And 7 countries are China, Russia, Iran, Saudi Arabia, Venezuela, North Korea, and Nigeria. Thank you, Michael, for looking that up. It's into the contract. Okay, it's a Friday. Oh, and it's Labor Day weekend, so Monday's a holiday. So the offices will be open with Kissy apps, but the staff will have the day off because they get holidays off. You got cursed out, Brian?
Oh my God.
You're one dude I wouldn't curse out. You're a big guy. I got cursed out yesterday when reaching out. That's a stressed out person is what you found.
Yes.
That's what it is. So don't take it personally. I'm sure the other people you talked to did not curse you out. So don't let one negative hit you with a bad idea, a bad day. Cool beans. All right. Happy Friday, and have a safe and happy
Happy Labor Day.
Happy Labor Day. Bye all.